At least 10 weapons are confiscated from students each week in Australian schools as parents complain no-punish laws are putting their children in deadly peril. Machetes, knives and replica guns have become common in schools in Victoria and Western Australia, putting both students and staff in danger. In Western Australia alone, schools have seized more than 4 weapons every week this year, including a machete and a replica handgun. Last year, schools in Victoria were seizing an average of 6 weapons a week. There were 229 incidents involving weapons that were reported in government schools, with knives being the most common. In Western Australia between February and May this year almost 60 weapons were found and confiscated, indicating a similar trend to last year when 176 weapons were found in schools across the state. The numbers were released through parliamentary estimates and have angered parents who say that a non-punishment policy in some schools allows children to bring dangerous weapons without consequences. Data collected over the last few years shows that weapons are common within classrooms across the country and are often used in confrontations. It's not just other school children at risk, with many teachers also being threatened by an armed pupil. In one Victorian case, a girl as young as 12 was found with a knife hidden up her sleeve after teachers received a tip-off. In another incident, a Year 9 boy armed himself with a knife and hammer before violently threatening a female staff member. Queensland schools have had an increase in threats of violence over recent years. Last year, more than 5 weapons were being brought to schools every month. In one incident, a student had a handgun in his bag, and in another a student was holed up with a knife in a classroom, threatening to stab everyone. The rates in South Australia were lower with 327 incidents over the last 5 years. Police do not disclose the extent of violence in schools in regular crime statistics, meaning rates for some states and territories remain unknown. Bringing a knife or gun to school can result in a long suspension of more than 20 days, but some schools are able to implement their own policies. Western Australian school John Butler Primary College has implemented a no-suspension policy for bringing weapons onto school grounds. Stephen Baxter, Acting Deputy Director General, Schools for the Department of Education, said that he would advise the principal that suspensions were necessary. The Director General is writing to the principal to set out her very clear expectation that students will face consequences, including suspension, if they lash out and hurt others, and that the school will be managed in a safe and orderly way, Mr. Baxter said. The Regional Executive Director is working intensively with the school's leadership team to make sure the required changes are made so that students and staff feel safe and that learning is not interrupted by unacceptable behavior. Greene Haythorpe, the Australian Education Union federal president, said that the safety of staff and students had to be paramount and that Australia should be wary to follow America's call to arm teachers. There is absolutely no place for weapons in our schools, she said. In our view, the safety of teachers, students, principals and other support staff is of primary importance in any discussion about weapons in schools. We do not believe that teachers or educators should be armed to prevent violence, as has been suggested by some people in the United States. Instead, actions should be taken by Australia's political leaders to prevent harm by greater regulation of guns and weapons.